The knock on the door came 3 hours after dawn, and Hannah Zimmerman knew before she even opened it that her life was about to shatter into pieces too small to ever fit back together. The man standing on her porch wore a black suit despite the August heat of 1883, and the papers in his hand told her everything she had been dreading for the past 6 weeks since her husband Thomas had ridden out of Bentonville, Arkansas, and never come back. Mrs. Zimmerman, I am Edwin Foster from the First Bank of Bentonville. I am sorry to be the bearer of difficult news, but your husband has outstanding debts that are now overdue. Given his absence, the responsibility falls to you. Hannah felt the wooden doorframe dig into her palm as she gripped it for support. She was 24 years old and had been married for 3 years to a man she thought she knew. Thomas had been charming when they met, full of big dreams and bigger promises about the mercantile store he was going to open, about the life they would build together in this growing town. She had believed every word. How much? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Mr. Foster cleared his throat and glanced down at the papers. The total comes to $4,862. There are loans from the bank, outstanding credit at the general store, money owed to the lumber mill, and several personal debts to individuals in town. The number hit her like a physical blow. $4,000. She made maybe $30 a month taking in laundry and sewing. At that rate, she would be working for over 10 years just to pay off what Thomas had left behind. I do not have that kind of money, Mr. Foster. I barely have enough to buy flour and beans. I understand, Mrs. Zimmerman. However, the bank will need to collect on these debts. If payment cannot be arranged, we will have to take possession of this house and any property you own. He paused, and something like sympathy flickered across his face. You have 30 days. After he left, Hannah sank down onto the floor of her small front room and let herself cry for exactly 5 minutes. Then she dried her eyes, stood up, and began taking inventory of everything she owned. The house itself belonged to the bank now, apparently. The furniture was mostly things she had brought from her parents' home before they passed. She had her mother's silver brush, a quilt her grandmother had made, and approximately $17 hidden in a tin can under a loose floorboard. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of humiliation. She went to every business in Bentonville that Thomas had owed money to, explaining that she was working on a payment plan, begging for more time. Some were kind. Others looked at her with the same expression people reserve for stray dogs they do not want to feed but feel guilty about kicking. She sold her mother's brush, the quilt, every piece of jewelry she owned except her simple wedding band. She raised $240, which barely made a dent in what was owed. On the 15th day, she was hanging laundry behind her house when she heard a horse approaching. She looked up to see a tall man dismounting from a beautiful chestnut mare. He wore dusty trail clothes and a hat pulled low against the sun, and there was something about the economical way he moved that suggested both confidence and weariness in equal measure. Excuse me, madam. I am looking for Thomas Zimmerman. Is this his residence? Hannah felt her stomach twist. Another creditor, probably. Another person her husband had cheated or lied to. Thomas is not here. If he owes you money, you will have to get in line behind everyone else in this town. The man pushed his hat back, and she got her first clear look at his face. He was maybe 30 years old, with sun-weathered skin and gray eyes that looked like they had seen more than their share of hard living. But there was something gentle in those eyes, too, something that made him seem less threatening than he should have, given his size and the gun at his hip. He does owe me money, actually, quite a bit of it, but I am not here to collect from you, Mrs. Zimmerman. I know the situation. The whole town knows the situation. Then why are you here? To tell you what kind of man you married, I suppose. though I suspect you have figured that out by now." He shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable. "My name is Travis Thornton. I am a ranch hand mostly. Work cattle drives when I can get them. Last spring, I saved up $1,100. Took me 3 years to put that together. I was going to buy some land, start my own small operation. Your husband convinced me he could triple my money through some investment opportunity he had arranged." Hannah closed her eyes. "He took your money, every cent, and disappeared with it about 6 weeks ago, from what I hear." Travis's voice was flat, matter-of-fact. "I talked to the sheriff. He said Thomas left town on the midnight stage to Fort Smith. From there, he could be anywhere. Could be in Kansas City or St. Louis or San Francisco for all anyone knows. I am so sorry, Mr. Thornton. I did not know about any of this. I thought he was working on getting his business established. I thought we were building something together." Her voice cracked despite her best efforts. "I know it does not mean much, but I am trying to pay back what he owes. I have raised some money. It is not enough, but I am trying." Travis was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those steady gray eyes. Then he said something that made no sense at all. "How much does it all add up to? The total debt? Nearly $5,000. She laughed bitterly. "I could work for the rest of my life and never earn that much." "What if I paid it off?" Hannah stared at him, certain she had misheard. "What? What if I paid off all the debts, cleared your name, made sure you could keep your house and start fresh?" "Mr. Thornton, that is not funny. I understand you are angry, but making cruel jokes is not going to help anything." He stepped forward, his expression serious. "I am not joking, Mrs. Zimmerman. I am not a wealthy man, but I have been saving money since I was 15 years old. I have worked hard and lived simple. I have got almost $6,000 put away in a bank in Fort Smith. I can pay off what your husband owes and still have enough to get by." "But why would you do that? You just told me Thomas stole from you. Why would you give me more money?" Travis looked down at his boots, then back up at her. "Because I have been where you are. Not exactly the same, but close enough. When I was younger, my father gambled away everything we had and then put a bullet in his own head rather than face what he had done. Left my mother to deal with the debts and the shame. I watched her work herself to death trying to make good on his mistakes. Took her 8 years, but she did it. And then she died of pneumonia the winter I turned 19. She was only 42 years old." Hannah felt tears stinging her eyes. "Mr. Thornton, I am truly sorry for your loss, but I cannot let you do this. It would not be right." "Why not? That money has been sitting in a bank for years. I always told myself I was saving it for something important. Maybe this is what it was for. Maybe helping someone who actually deserves help is worth more than buying a few acres of scrubland and some half-wild cattle. But you do not even know me, and you would be giving up your dream. Dreams change." He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Look, Mrs. Zimmerman, I am not asking for anything in return. I am not trying to buy your gratitude or your friendship or anything else. I just cannot stand by and watch another good woman get destroyed by a man's selfishness. Let me do this, please." Hannah felt like the ground was shifting under her feet. This stranger was offering her salvation, asking for nothing, and every instinct she had was screaming that this could not be real. Men did not do things like this, not without expecting something in return. Except Travis Thornton was standing in front of her with completely open honesty in his face, waiting for her answer. "I do not know what to say. Say yes. Let me help you. Then I will ride out of town and you can go on with your life." She wanted to say yes more than she had ever wanted anything. But the thought of taking so much from this man, this stranger who had already been cheated once, felt impossible to accept. "Mr. Thornton, you said yourself that Thomas stole from you." If you pay off his debts, you will have lost everything twice over. At least if you keep your money, you can still have your ranch someday. I will figure something out. I always do. He pulled off his hat and ran a hand through his dark hair. Please, Mrs. Zimmerman. I did not ride all the way here from Oklahoma just to argue about it. You came from Oklahoma. I have been working on a ranch outside of Tulsa. Heard about what happened with your husband through a friend who knew him. Took me a week to get here. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face, made him look younger and less careworn. I am a stubborn man when I set my mind to something. You might as well give in now and save us both some time. Despite everything, Hannah found herself almost laughing. You are serious about this? As serious as I have ever been about anything in my life. She took a deep breath and made a decision that felt like stepping off a cliff. All right, yes, if you are truly willing to do this, then yes, I accept your help, but only on one condition. What is that? Once my house is secure and I can get back on my feet, I will pay you back. Every penny. It might take me years, but I will do it. Travis looked like he wanted to argue, but he must have seen the determination in her face because he just nodded. If that is what you need to feel right about it, then all right, but there is no rush, you understand. Take all the time you need. Thank you, Mr. Thornton. I do not have words for how much this means to me, Travis, just Travis. He put his hat back on. Now, how about you show me that list of debts so I can start getting this sorted out? The next 3 days were some of the strangest of Hannah's life. Travis Thornton rode to Fort Smith and returned with a bank draft for $5,000. Then he proceeded to visit every single person and business in Bentonville that Thomas had owed money to, paying off each debt in full. Hannah went with him, watching in amazement as the weight that had been crushing her was lifted piece by piece. When they got to the bank, Mr. Foster looked shocked to see Travis laying down the money to clear Thomas's loans. Mr. Thornton, you are aware this is a substantial sum. I can count, Mr. Foster. Just make sure the paperwork shows that Mrs. Zimmerman no longer owes anything. Her name gets cleared completely. Of course, this is most generous of you. After they left the bank, Hannah turned to Travis on the street. I still cannot believe you did this. Starting to sink in yet. Not really. She looked up at him, this mysterious cowboy who had appeared out of nowhere and changed everything. Travis, you need to know that I will keep my promise. I will pay you back. I believe you. He glanced up at the sun, which was starting to sink toward the horizon. I should probably start thinking about heading back to Oklahoma. I have been gone for over a week, and the foreman will be wondering where I got to. The thought of him leaving sent an unexpected pang through Hannah's chest, which was absurd. She had known this man for 3 days. He had done what he came to do. Of course he was going to leave. Will you at least stay for supper first? It is the least I can offer after everything you have done. Travis hesitated, and she could see him weighing the offer. Then he smiled again, that warm smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. I would like that very much, Mrs. Zimmerman. Hannah, if you are going to be just Travis, then I am going to be just Hannah. She cooked the best meal she could manage with what she had in the house. Fried chicken, biscuits, green beans from her garden, and a peach cobbler made with the last of her canned peaches. Travis ate like a man who had been living on trail rations, which he probably had been, and complimented everything with genuine enthusiasm. As they ate, they talked. Really talked, in a way Hannah had not talked to anyone in longer than she could remember. Travis told her about growing up poor in Missouri, about learning to ride and rope cattle when he was barely tall enough to reach a stirrup. He told her about the places he had worked over the years, the ranches and the cattle drives, the wide open spaces that had been his home for most of his adult life. He did not talk much about his mother, but Hannah could hear the grief in his voice when he mentioned her. In turn, she told him about growing up in Bentonville, about her parents who had run a small farm until illness took them both within a year of each other. She told him about meeting Thomas at a church social, about how charming and ambitious he had seemed, about how she had thought she was building a future with a good man. "I feel so foolish," she admitted as they finished the cobbler. "I should have seen the signs." He was always talking about money, always convinced the next big opportunity was just around the corner, but I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to believe we were going to be happy. "That does not make you foolish. That makes you human." Travis pushed his empty plate away and leaned back in his chair. "You trusted someone you loved. That is what you are supposed to do. And look where it got me. It got you free. Thomas is gone, Hannah. You do not have to worry about what new disaster he is going to drag you into. The debts are paid. The house is yours. You can start over, build the life you want instead of the life he was dragging you toward." She looked across the table at this man who had saved her and felt something shift in her chest. "Why are you really doing this, Travis? And do not tell me it is just because of your mother. There is more to it than that." He was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes serious. "You want the truth. I have been drifting for a long time, moving from one job to the next, saving money for a dream that I was never quite ready to reach for. And then I heard about what Thomas did, about you being left to deal with his mess, and I realized I was tired of drifting. I wanted to do something that mattered, something good. Does that make sense?" "It does." Hannah felt her throat tighten. "You are a good man, Travis Thornton." "I am trying to be." They cleaned up the dishes together, working in comfortable silence. When everything was put away, Travis said he should probably go find a room at the hotel for the night before heading out in the morning. But Hannah found herself not wanting him to leave, not wanting this strange, perfect evening to end. "You could stay here," she blurted out, then immediately felt her face heat. "I mean, in the spare room. It is not much, just a small room with a bed, but it would save you the cost of the hotel. After everything you have done, it seems silly for you to spend more money." Travis looked surprised, then pleased. "Are you sure? I do not want to impose or cause any talk." "Let people talk. They have been talking about me for weeks anyway," she smiled. "Besides, you are leaving tomorrow. What harm can one night do? All right then. I accept. Thank you." The spare room was indeed small, barely large enough for the narrow bed and a chair, but Travis said it was finer than most places he had slept. Hannah gave him clean sheets and a blanket, then retreated to her own room across the hall. She lay awake for a long time, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of someone else in the house, feeling a strange mixture of gratitude and something else she could not quite name. In the morning, she woke before dawn out of habit and started making breakfast. Travis emerged from the spare room looking freshly shaved, his dark hair still damp from washing. He helped her cook eggs and bacon and fresh biscuits, moving around her small kitchen with an ease that suggested he was used to taking care of himself. "You did not have to get up so early," Hannah said as she poured coffee. "You could have slept in." "Old habits." "I have been getting up before the sun for most of my life." He accepted the coffee with a grateful smile. "Besides, this is nice, cooking with someone. I am usually eating alone or with a bunch of ranch hands who think table manners mean not stabbing each other with forks." Hannah laughed, a real laugh that surprised her. When was the last time she had laughed? "That sounds exciting." Exciting is one word for it. They ate slowly, both of them seeming to draw out the meal longer than necessary. Finally, Travis stood and stretched. "I should probably get my horse saddled and head out. I've got a long ride ahead of me." Hannah followed him outside, where his chestnut mare was tied to the post. The morning air was cool, a brief respite before the Arkansas heat set in. Travis checked his saddle, adjusted his saddlebags, all the small rituals of a man preparing for travel. "Will you write to me?" Hannah asked suddenly. "Let me know you got back safely." He turned to look at her, surprise and something warmer in his expression. "I can do that if you want me to." "I do. Then I will." He swung up into the saddle with practiced grace, then looked down at her. "Take care of yourself, Hannah Zimmerman. You are stronger than you know." "Goodbye, Travis. Thank you for everything." She watched him ride away until he was just a speck on the horizon, then went back inside her empty house. It felt different now. Not like a prison of debt and shame, but like a blank page waiting to be filled. And despite the ache in her chest at watching Travis leave, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived. Hannah recognized the careful, slightly awkward handwriting as Travis's immediately. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Dear Hannah, I hope this letter finds you well. I made it back to Oklahoma without any trouble, though my horse was pretty tired by the time we got here. The foreman was not too happy about me disappearing for 2 weeks, but he got over it when I explained where I had been. I am back to regular work now, mending fences and moving cattle, all the usual ranch business. I find myself thinking about Bentonville a lot, about your little house and your cooking and the way you laugh. I hope you do not mind me saying that. I know I said I would not ask anything in return for helping you, and I meant that. But I would be lying if I said I was not hoping we could stay in touch. How are things going there? Have you been able to get back to your normal work? I hope people in town are treating you better now that the debts are cleared. Write back if you have time. I would like to hear from you. Your friend." Travis. Hannah read the letter 3 times, then sat down and immediately wrote a response. She told him about how her laundry business was picking up again, about the new sewing projects she had taken on, about how the town was slowly starting to look at her like a person again, instead of a scandal. She told him about the garden she was expanding, about her plans to maybe sell vegetables at the market. And at the end, before she could second-guess herself, she wrote, "I think about Bentonville too. But mostly I think about you. I miss our conversations. I miss having someone to cook for. I miss the way you made me feel like everything was going to be all right. Please write again soon. Your friend." Hannah. The letters became regular after that. Once a week at first, then twice a week. Long letters full of details about their daily lives and deeper thoughts they might not have shared in person. Travis wrote about his childhood, about the dreams he had set aside, about the loneliness of a life spent moving from place to place. Hannah wrote about her marriage to Thomas, about the slow realization that she had been living with a stranger, about her fears and hopes for the future. 2 months after Travis had left, Hannah received a letter that made her heart race. "Dear Hannah, I have been doing a lot of thinking lately. About what I want out of life. About where I see myself in 5 years or 10 years. And every time I try to picture my future, you are in it. I know that probably sounds crazy. We only spent a few days together. But those few days meant more to me than years I have spent in other places with other people. I am not asking you for anything. I know you are still healing from what Thomas did. I know you need time to figure out who you are without him, but I wanted you to know how I feel. I wanted you to know that if you ever decide you might want someone like me in your life, I would ride back to Bentonville in a heartbeat. Take all the time you need. I will be here. Yours, Travis." Hannah sat on her porch with the letter in her hands, watching the sun set over Bentonville. She had been married to Thomas for 3 years and had never felt the way Travis's words made her feel. This was different. This was real. This was a man who saw her clearly and wanted her anyway, who expected nothing but offered everything. She went inside and wrote the most important letter of her life. Dear Travis, come back to Bentonville. Come back as soon as you can. I do not want to wait any more. I do not want to be careful or cautious or scared. You saved my life, but more than that, you showed me what it means when someone truly cares. I think I started falling in love with you the moment you offered to pay off those debts and asked for nothing in return. Come back, Travis. Come back and let's see if we can build something real together. I will be waiting. Yours, Hannah. She mailed the letter the next morning, then spent the following 2 weeks in a state of nervous anticipation. What if he changed his mind? What if he decided she was not worth the trouble? What if he never came? But on the 16th day, Hannah looked up from her laundry line to see a rider on a chestnut mare coming down the road. Her heart leaped into her throat. She dropped the wet shirt she had been hanging and ran toward him, not caring how it looked, not caring about anything except the fact that Travis Thornton had come back for her. He dismounted before his horse had fully stopped, and then she was in his arms and everything felt right in a way nothing had felt right in years. He smelled like dust and horse and the open prairie, and when he pulled back to look at her, his gray eyes were bright with emotion. I rode straight through, he said. Barely stopped to sleep. I got your letter and I just needed to be here. I am so glad you came back. Hannah, I need to tell you something before this goes any further. I am not a wealthy man. I do not have much to offer you beyond hard work and whatever future we can build together. But I promise you this. I will never lie to you, I will never abandon you, and I will spend every day trying to make you happy. If that is enough, then I would like to court you properly. Do things right. Hannah felt tears streaming down her face, but they were good tears, happy tears. That is more than enough. That is everything. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And standing there in the dusty yard of her little house in Bentonville, Arkansas, Hannah felt like her life was finally beginning. The courtship that followed was the happiest time Hannah could remember. Travis found work on a ranch just outside town, which meant he could visit her regularly without having to ride hundreds of miles. He came to her house for dinner several times a week, and they fell into an easy rhythm of companionship that felt as natural as breathing. He fixed things around her house, helped her expand her garden, sat on the porch with her in the evenings talking about everything and nothing. The town watched their relationship develop with interest. Some people approved, seeing Travis as the honorable man he was. Others whispered that Hannah was moving on too quickly, that it was not proper for her to be courting when her husband had only been gone a few months. But Hannah had stopped caring what people thought. She had paid for Thomas's mistakes with humiliation and hardship. She was done letting other people's opinions dictate her happiness. 4 months after Travis returned to Bentonville, he proposed. They were sitting by the creek on the edge of town, watching the water flow past in the late afternoon sun. Travis had been quieter than usual, and Hannah could tell something was on his mind. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. He turned to look at her, and she saw nervousness in his expression. "I am thinking about how I want to spend the rest of my life with you. How I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep next to you every night. How I want to build a home with you and raise children with you and grow old with you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple gold ring. "I know I should probably wait longer. I know people will talk, but I am tired of waiting for my life to start. Hannah Zimmerman, will you marry me?" Joy flooded through her, so intense it was almost painful. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slid the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. Then he kissed her with a passion that made her forget they were sitting in public view. Forget everything except the feeling of his arms around her, and the certainty that this was exactly where she was supposed to be. They were married 6 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the church. Hannah wore a dress she had sewn herself from cream-colored fabric she had been saving for something special. Travis wore a new suit that made him look uncomfortable but handsome. Her friend Margaret stood as her witness, and Travis's foreman from the ranch stood for him. The preacher kept the ceremony short and sweet, and when he pronounced them husband and wife, Travis kissed her like she was the most precious thing in the world. The wedding reception was held at Hannah's house, which was now their house. Friends and neighbors brought food and well wishes, and for the first time since Thomas had disappeared, Hannah felt truly accepted by the community again. As the evening wore on and the guests began to leave, Travis pulled her aside. "Happy, Mrs. Thornton. Happier than I ever thought I could be." She looked up at her new husband, this incredible man who had chosen her. "I love you, Travis. I love you too. More than I knew it was possible to love someone." That night, after the last guests had gone home, Travis carried her over the threshold of what was now truly their home. They made love slowly and tenderly, learning each other with patience and care. Hannah had never felt so cherished, so desired, so completely safe. In Travis's arms, she finally understood what marriage was supposed to be. The months that followed were full of simple, everyday happiness. Travis continued working on the ranch while also taking on extra jobs to save money. Hannah kept her laundry and sewing business going, proud to contribute to their household. They talked about the future constantly, about the small ranch they wanted to start someday, about the family they hoped to have, about growing old together. A year after their wedding, Hannah discovered she was pregnant. She told Travis over dinner, watching his face transform from confusion to understanding to pure elation in the space of seconds. "We are going to have a baby. We are going to have a baby." He jumped up from the table and lifted her into his arms, spinning her around until she was laughing and begging him to put her down. "I am going to be a father. We are going to be parents. Hannah, this is the best news I have ever received in my entire life." The pregnancy was difficult at times. Hannah suffered from sickness in the early months and exhaustion throughout. But Travis was attentive and patient, taking over the household chores when she was too tired, rubbing her aching back and swollen feet, reading to her in the evenings. He talked to her growing belly, telling their unborn child stories about the adventures they would have together. Their son was born on a cold February morning in 1885, after a labor that lasted 18 hours and left Hannah exhausted but exhilarated. Travis had stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, encouraging her, refusing to leave even when the midwife suggested he might be more comfortable waiting outside. When the baby finally emerged, crying lustily, Travis had tears streaming down his face. "He is perfect," he whispered, looking at the red-faced, squalling infant like he was seeing a miracle. "Hannah, he is absolutely perfect." They named him Theodore after Travis's grandfather, Teddy for short. He had his father's gray eyes and his mother's dark hair, and from the very beginning, he had both their stubborn determination. Travis proved to be an exceptional father, patient and loving and endlessly fascinated by every little thing Teddy did. He would walk the baby for hours when Teddy was fussy, singing old cowboy songs in his off-key but earnest voice. He changed diapers without complaint and got up for middle-of-the-night feedings even when he had to be at the ranch before dawn. When Teddy was 6 months old, Travis came home one evening with news. "The foreman is retiring," he said. "The ranch owner asked if I wanted the job. It comes with a significant raise and a small house on the property." Hannah looked around their little house, the place where so much had happened, both terrible and wonderful. "What did you tell him?" "I told him I needed to talk to my wife first. I know you have roots here, Hannah. I know this is your home, but the new house would be bigger." We would have more space for Teddy to grow up, and the extra money would help us save faster for our own place. She thought about it, weighing the familiar against the opportunity. Then she smiled. When do we move? The house on the ranch property was indeed bigger, with 2 bedrooms and a parlor and a kitchen that made Hannah want to weep with joy. It was farther from town, but Hannah found she did not mind the distance. She set up her sewing in one corner of the parlor and continued taking in work, though with Teddy to care for and Travis home more often. She was choosier about what jobs she accepted. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Travis thrived in his new position as foreman, proving to be a natural leader who could manage men and cattle with equal skill. Hannah created a warm, loving home, filling it with good food and laughter, and the everyday joys of watching their son grow. Teddy took his first steps on his first birthday, said his first word at 14 months, and by the time he was 2 years old, he was chattering constantly and following his father around like a devoted shadow. When Teddy was 3, Hannah discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was easier, and their daughter arrived on a warm June evening with far less drama than her brother's birth. They named her Helen after Hannah's mother, and she was beautiful, with her father's features softened into delicate femininity and her mother's dark eyes. Their family felt complete. 2 healthy, happy children and a love that had only grown deeper and stronger over the years. Travis had been promoted again, and now managed 3 ranches for the owner. He was making enough money that they were seriously saving for their own land. Hannah's sewing business had evolved into a thriving concern, with women from town regularly commissioning dresses and quilts. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Travis took Hannah into town for dinner at the hotel restaurant, leaving the children with Margaret. Over dessert, he reached across the table and took her hand. "You ever think about how different your life would be if I had not come to Bentonville that day?" Hannah squeezed his fingers. "I try not to. It was such a dark time. I felt so hopeless. I think about it sometimes. About how close I came to not going. I almost talked myself out of it a dozen times on the ride there. I kept thinking it was foolish, that I should just write off the money Thomas stole and move on. But something kept pushing me forward. I am so grateful you listened to that something. Me too. Because I found you. I found the life I did not even know I was looking for." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "I have something for you, an anniversary present." Hannah unfolded the paper and felt her breath catch. It was a deed to 160 acres of land just west of Bentonville. Good land with a creek running through it and plenty of grass for cattle. "Travis, this is too much. It is ours. I bought it last month. We have enough saved now to start building. A real house, Hannah. A real ranch. Everything we have been dreaming about." She looked at the deed, then at her husband, this man who had saved her and loved her and built a life with her that exceeded every dream she had ever dared to have. "When do we start?" Building the ranch took 2 years. Travis continued working as foreman while supervising the construction of their house and barn. It was a massive undertaking, but they approached it the same way they approached everything, together. Hannah helped design the house, ensuring it had everything they needed for their growing family. They built a sturdy 4-bedroom home with a wide porch and large windows that let in plenty of light. The barn was big enough for a dozen horses and had a loft where Teddy loved to play. They bought their first cattle with a combination of savings and a small loan from the bank, which made Hannah nervous until Travis reminded her that this was different. This was an investment in their future, not a get-rich-quick scheme. And unlike Thomas, Travis knew what he was doing. He had spent his entire adult life working with cattle. This was not a fantasy. This was a solid plan based on real knowledge and real experience. The first year was hard. There were droughts and sick animals and equipment that broke at the worst possible times. But Travis worked tirelessly, and Hannah supported him in every way she could. She took over the financial record keeping, proving to have a natural head for numbers and organization. She managed the household and the children while also finding time to help with ranch chores when extra hands were needed. By the third year, the ranch was profitable. Not hugely so, but enough to support them comfortably and slowly expand the herd. Teddy was 8 years old now and already showing an interest in ranch work, trailing after his father whenever he was allowed. Helen was 5, more interested in helping her mother with the garden and the chickens than in anything to do with cattle, but equally determined and hardworking in her own way. One evening, after the children were in bed, Hannah and Travis sat on their porch watching the sun set over their land. Travis had his arm around her shoulders, and she was leaning into his warmth, feeling utterly content. "You ever regret it?" Hannah asked quietly. "Giving up your savings to pay off Thomas's debts? You could have had your ranch years earlier if you had kept that money." Travis was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. "No, not for a single second, because if I had kept that money and started my ranch back then, I would have done it alone. I would have built something, sure, but it would have been empty. Instead, I have this. I have you and Teddy and Helen. I have a home that is filled with love and laughter. I have a partner who makes every day better just by being in it. How could I possibly regret the choices that led me here?" Hannah felt tears prick her eyes. "I love you so much. I love you too." More than words can say. He kissed the top of her head. "You know what the best part is? We are just getting started. We have so much life ahead of us still, so many adventures to have and memories to make. Tell me what you see when you picture our future." "I see this ranch growing into something we can pass down to our children. I see Teddy learning to run it, becoming the kind of man who treats people right and works hard. I see Helen finding whatever makes her happy, whether that is here or somewhere else. I see us growing old together, sitting on this porch when we are gray and wrinkled, watching our grandchildren play in that yard. I see a long, full life with you by my side." That sounds perfect, and it was. Over the following years, everything Travis had envisioned came to pass. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Teddy grew into a strong, capable young man who loved the land as much as his father did. Helen discovered a passion for teaching and eventually became a school teacher in Bentonville. Both children grew up knowing they were deeply loved, watching their parents build something beautiful out of nothing but hard work and devotion. Hannah never did pay Travis back the money he had spent clearing her debts. They had talked about it several times in the early years of their marriage, but Travis had always insisted that the money was a gift, not a loan. Eventually, Hannah stopped arguing about it and instead focused on the fact that everything they built together. The ranch was not his or hers. It was theirs, created through combined effort and shared dreams. 20 years after Travis had first ridden into Bentonville, he and Hannah stood in the same spot on their porch, watching the sunset. Their hair was graying now, and there were lines on their faces that had not been there before. But their hands were still clasped together, and their love was as strong as ever. "You remember the first time I came to your house?" Travis asked. "When I told you I wanted to pay off the debts?" "Of course I remember. I thought you were either insane or cruel. I could not understand why anyone would offer something like that. And now," Hannah turned to look at her husband, the man who had changed her entire life with a single act of kindness. "Now I understand that you were neither insane nor cruel. You were just good, truly, genuinely good, and I was lucky enough that you chose to share that goodness with me. I was the lucky one. I was drifting through life with no real purpose, saving money for a dream I was too scared to chase. And then I found you, and suddenly everything made sense. You gave me a reason to put down roots. You gave me a home. We gave each other a home." He pulled her close and kissed her, slow and sweet, the kiss of two people who had spent decades learning every detail of each other and still found new things to discover. When they finally pulled apart, Travis rested his forehead against hers. "Thank you for saying yes that day. Thank you for letting me help you. Thank you for taking a chance on a wandering cowboy who did not have much to offer except a promise to try his best. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for saving me when I did not know how to save myself. Thank you for loving me the way I always hoped to be loved." They stood there as the sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple and gold. Inside the house behind them, they could hear the sounds of family gathering for dinner. Teddy had come by with his new wife, and Helen had brought her, though she wanted them to meet. There would be good food and better conversation, laughter and stories, and all the small joys that made life worth living. But for this moment, it was just the two of them, Hannah and Travis, a woman who had been broken and a man who had helped her heal. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. A love story that had started with an act of selfless kindness and grown into a lifetime of partnership and devotion. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Travis whispered, "Best decision I ever made." Hannah smiled and squeezed his hand. "Mine too." And standing there on their porch on their land, surrounded by the family and life they had created together, Hannah Zimmerman Thornton felt a peace so profound it brought tears to her eyes. She had been lost once, drowning in debt and shame and the consequences of another man's betrayals. But Travis had thrown her a lifeline, asking nothing in return, and in doing so had given them both exactly what they needed: a second chance at happiness and a love that would last forever.